Hello everybody, Kate here, I'm the conflict coach, and today I want to talk to you about catastrophizing conflict. Somebody raised this issue recently because, and I think a number of people would identify with this, that they might have other managers, middle managers that they're supporting who won't deal with conflict because they think that it's going to be too hard. They catastrophize the situation and they become overwhelmed by their perception of how things are going to be, and so they don't act. And often what they do is they then handball that problem up the line. Sometimes they handball it to the side, but often they handball it up the line. And look, we can all catastrophize conflict. We can all find ourselves in a position where we think that something bad is going to happen. We make an assumption at the very outset that something really bad is going to happen if we have this conversation, and so we don't have it, and then we overthink it, and we don't take the action that we need to take, and often a relatively ordinary situation gets out of hand because of our failure to act. So I really want to address some of that today. Now, it's very easy to catastrophize conflict because most of us have a very negative idea about what conflict looks like. So when I run workshops, one of the first things I get the group to do is for everybody individually to write down words that come to mind when they think of conflict. And in the main, the words that people think of when they think of conflict are negative. So they often come up with words like scary, loud, noisy, yelling, unfair, winning, losing, a whole range of different ideas about that. And for some people, conflict is so overwhelming that they don't even, they find the concept of even thinking about it quite distressing. So some people are coming from a situation where there may have been violence in their family life or whatever, and they identify violence as conflict or conflict as violence. And I want to tell you that conflict is significantly easier to deal with than that. Violence is an extreme form of somebody trying to control another person, and it's not conflict in its most basic sense. But for many of us, we've had very bad experiences dealing with conflict. It has sometimes resulted in very poor outcomes because we haven't communicated very well. And so conflict often gets a very bad rap. And because it gets a bad rap, we catastrophize it, and we can all do it. And sometimes it might be personality types that trigger that catastrophe more than another. So somebody that you know is calm and gentle and reasonable, then having a conversation with that person might not be an issue. But dealing with somebody who might be a bully or perceived to react strongly to situations, we might put that off thinking, that one's going to be a bit nasty, so we won't have that conversation. So that's how catastrophe can happen. I think of conflict in a very different way. I think of conflict as information. When there is a conflict, and usually that conflict is something that we think about. Sometimes we create the conflict. It doesn't even exist. It's just something that we've thought about. We think somebody's going to behave in that certain manner, and in our brain there is a conflict, even though there might not be. The other person may not react in that way at all when we approach them, but we've decided that they're going to. So most of it's up here. The majority of times, conflict is information. And when we know what the information is, we can unpack it, and the information is telling us there's a problem. When we unpack the problem, then we can deal with the problem. And it's how we go about getting that information out and dealing with it that's the issue here. It's not that the fact that we don't agree, that's okay. It's okay not to agree. Most of the time that creates really great outcomes, because if we don't agree and we're both very passionate about something, then that means that I can learn something from you and you can learn something from me. And often we agree on some really important issues, but there's only these small bits that we don't agree on about how we're going to go forward. So if we think of conflict as information rather than it being scary or it being something over there that we don't know how to control, if we think of it as information and we stop giving it so much power and energy, then suddenly it becomes a whole lot easier to work with. And the reality is that if we've got some behaviours that we don't like and we don't address it, when it's down here, it's really simple to work with, because that behaviour that we think is a problem or an issue, or we think there is a problem here, if we address that there, then we're talking about information that hasn't been going on for a long period of time. We nip it in the bud. We have the conversation and we might say, look, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you've been late 5 times in the last 2 weeks. Is everything okay? Because we do have a policy that we start at 9 and we need everybody here at 9. So can you just help me understand what's going on? And they might say, look, there's a family thing going on or whatever. And you'll go, okay, look, understand that, but maybe we need to have a conversation about that so I know what's going on, because it's not fair on the rest of the team that they're expected here by 9 and you're coming on in late. So let's have a conversation about that. Put it on the table, unpack it, work out what is the issue, how can we move forward. Do it. It's really simple. But what happens is, we don't do it. We start coming up with a whole lot of ideas about why this person's late for work. We don't address it. We don't ask them anything because we might be concerned that they're going to blow up at us or they're going to yell at us or whatever. It gets out of hand. Other staff now start complaining because this person's not being respectful, and there's all this other perceived stuff going on. And before you know it, you do have a catastrophe, because suddenly you've got this situation that's got out of hand because it hasn't been dealt with. And I see it all the time. I regularly come across situations where somebody's behaviour hasn't been good, and sometimes it goes on for very long periods of time, like years, where this behaviour is tolerated and tolerated and tolerated, and then suddenly, bang, it comes to a head because somebody else complains, somebody else is finding this behaviour a risk to the organisation. There will always be something that generates a perfect storm over here, and eventually, one day, you have to do something about it. So do it here. Do it then when it's just information. By the time it's got to there, then you've got all of this time where you've let people think that their behaviour is okay. And that's much, much harder to come back from if you let situations get out of control. So one of the things that we need to teach people to do is how to start that conversation. And it is actually quite easy when we do it here, because it's about caring for the person. Are you okay? Because we had an agreement about this and that's not happening, so I'm just wondering if there's something going on that I need to know about. That's the type of thing that's happening. If somebody's being noisy in the office and you want them to be quiet, the main thing is to just go, pull them aside. Hey, are you aware that you're a bit noisy in the office? And they might go, oh my God, I didn't mean to be. And they'll go, no, that's okay, but you know now, so we just need to make sure that we've got some quiet when people are walking through the office because other people are working. Okay, no biggie. But it gets a biggie if no one ever addresses it, and then somebody one day will just call it, and there might be a full-on Barney between 2 members of staff because this person is always noisy walking through the office. Call it early. And just call it, like it's just information. Are you aware that you'll sometimes talk quite loudly? Because if you said that to me, I'd go, oh yeah, that's me. And if I didn't know that, then that's probably something I need to know about. And then I might go, am I? I didn't know I was being noisy. And they go, yeah, actually quite loud when you speak. And you go, oh, I wonder if I've got a hearing problem. Okay, but you can deal with things. Now, obviously, you're going to get pushed back sometimes, but that's that person's issue. So long as you deliver the information in a caring, thoughtful manner and you're not attacking them personally, but you're just giving them some information. I need to give you some information, and this is the information. What they do with it is up to them. You're not saying they're a bad person. You're not saying that they're not good at their work. You're not attacking them. You're giving them some information. So if we stop thinking that every time something goes wrong, that we're actually in a conflict situation, because at this stage it's not a conflict, it's just information. The information is someone's late, or they're loud, or they didn't do this maths correctly, or they didn't make the sales calls they said they were going to. Whatever it is, it's just information. It is still information up here, but by the time you get to up here, it's just got a lot of baggage attached to it, and it's much, much harder to deal with that baggage. So don't catastrophize. And if you are managing people in middle management and they want to handball you this problem, then it's really important that you give it back to them and say, this is yours, you need to deal with this, this is not my issue, you've got this. It's just information, you can tell them, that's fine. And you can coach them about how they can give that information and be the leaders to their teams that they need to be. Because the only way you can stop constantly having people knocking on your door and people handballing the problem up to you is you have to stop accepting the handball. They've got it. You just need to make sure that they've got the skills to be able to do that. I hope that's helpful to you. I can't answer questions because I have my phone around the other way so that you can read my board. So I don't know if there's any questions there. But if you do have any questions, if there's anything that you want to know, please contact me. More than happy to help provide workshops and other coaching to assist people with these issues. And there's a really fun day coming up on the 27th of July, which is the Thrive Tribe Live. And I'm going to be doing a full-day workshop with Kate Burr here in Adelaide. Kate Burr is a comedian, and the reason why she's working with me is because, one, we want to have fun. Two, we want to be able to make sure that people recognise that you can still have fun even though you're dealing with these issues. And thirdly, because comedy is a really useful tool for looking at problems in a different way, because comedians are brilliant at it, and Kate has developed some tools around how to do that. So I want to showcase some of her work along with my work on the 27th of July. So please have a look at all of that. It will be in the Thrive Tribe in the Facebook group, but it'll also be marketed to you online through email and via LinkedIn and Facebook and all those other things. So I hope you can join us. All right, have a good one. Have a good week. I'll speak to you next time. Cheers.